You know, many times when we talk about Africa, and I ask young people, have you ever heard of Mbaraka Mwinshehe Mwaruka, the great Tanzanian musician? They have not. This is one of the greatest musicians ever to have come out of this region. And those of you who are older will remember that he actually died when he was traveling from Mombasa to Tanzania after a recording session. And I want you to take time, young people, to listen to Mbaraka Mwinshehe Mwaruka from Morogoro in Tanzania. Let me start by saying how glad I am to be in your presence this early afternoon to discuss a subject that I believe is very important, particularly now in the history of our country. It is important because, as my very good friend Hassan posed to me almost rhetorically, what stage of our life is our country in? And I quickly said we are in a midlife crisis as a country. And when a country is in midlife crisis, there are many things that sometimes can go wrong. The Kenyan nation as we know it today is a young nation. We became a British colony officially on the 11th day of June, the year 1920. Prior to that, we existed. But we existed as different nations. So that the Meru existed as an Meru nation, complete with their governance systems, with the supreme authority coming from the Njuri Nsheke. That was the Meru governance system. The Aembu did, as the Agekoyo did, as the Maasai did. The communities that we call Mijikenda were separate. They were only unified as Mijikenda. The Kalenjin existed as Nandi, as Kipsigis, as Marakwet, as Turgen. The Abaluhia existed as Isuha, Idaho, as Maragoli, as Ababukusu. The Luos existed. These were the nations that were neighbors and they traded. Then something happened in the world from which Africa has never recovered. The European powers came here initially to trade. Imperial British East African Company came here. We became a protectorate before we became a colony. We were then divided into the territory that we now know as Kenya. All these nations were then put together under British administration. So that whether you liked it or not, you, the Meru, had to coexist with your neighbors who are from the Somali nation. The Somali nation was divided into different states. So you found them in Somalia, you found them in Somaliland, you found them in Ethiopia, and still do you find them in Djibouti. That is the reality in which we found ourselves. So that those who are older here will tell you, from 1920, we were put together into this gridlock. We resisted here in Kenya as others did. When you visit Nairobi, you'll see a street called Harithuku. In 1922, they were resisting. You'll see streets such as Muindi Mbingu. These were resisting. Me katilili wamenza. They were resisting, men and women. It is in that unhappy position that we struggled until on the first day of June the year 1963, we regained our independence. And we did not separate in order to go back to our little enclaves. We did not. We chose not to. And the history of our choosing not to was to be found in a conference held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, from the 23rd to the 25th days of May 1963, when the then 32 independent African states converged. And the debate arose as to whether we should disturb inherited colonial boundaries. The debate was not concluded because at that time some of the leaders took the view that very quickly we would unite as Africans. That did not happen, and a year later in 1964, in Cairo in Egypt, the same issue emerged. And it was Tanzania, or then Tanganyika's Julius Kambarage Nyerere, who moved the motion on what gave birth to what is called the inviolability of inherited colonial boundaries. And this is Mwalimu's argument. He said, if we begin to redraw these boundaries, where will we stop? Will we have peace? And if it is true, as Kwame says on Nkrumah of Ghana, that we are going to unite, why don't we retain these boundaries? They'll merely be administrative anyway. Of course, we did not unite. And we, as I've already said, on the first day of June, regained our independence in 1963, and on the 12th day of December 1964 we became a republic. But on what basis did we become a republic? We had a constitution, Act number 1968 of 1963, which we call our Independence Constitution. It was manufactured in Westminster, and it was called a Westminster Model Constitution. It was not made by us. And those of you who are students of history will remember when the Kenyan delegation went to England, it was actually, the meeting was held at the Whitehall. There were two camps. The one camp that took the view that Kenya should be a unitary country, and the other camp that took the view that Kenya should be a federal country. They kind of won the day. And the first Kenyan constitution divided Kenya into regions, complete with a Senate. But the other delegation, led by the Kenya African National Union of Jomo Kenyatta, James, as agitation started and you gave the victory sign, some of the KANU stalwarts said they should cut your 2 fingers. I was there. And some of you are there and you remember. National values, we are still in search of them. In 1988, Moi, to his credit, when the church spoke, he listened. Particularly the Catholic Church. And they spoke. And he listened. And I suspect he was scared. And in 1988, he put the Saitoti Commission. Professor George Saitoti is asked to go around the country and to ask, what do Kenyans want? And the Kenyans came out and said, we want the liberalization of the political space, saying we want people to be allowed to organize themselves as they deem fit. KANU holds a meeting at Kasarani. Everybody else who spoke thinking they were reading Daniel Moi's mind said, we do not want multi-party. When he stands up, he has read the mind and the mood of the nation and the world. He says, kama wanataka wapewe. And that is how multi-party politics is then reintroduced into the country at a time when we are also saying, and I was there, I was in the Council of the Law Society as a young lawyer, 1990, 1991. And we start talking about a new constitution, because we believe then that a new constitution will form the foundation stone upon which we will rebuild Kenya. It goes on and on until once again Daniel Moi succumbs. And when he succumbs, a commission is put together to go around the country. And when they go around the country, they are meant to collect the people's views. And I remember so very vividly how the process started, because we were in the Law Society of Kenya. And I remember how we were agitating at that time. And I remember how the people were animated. And I remember how people were calling for a country that respected people's views. I was not the first secretary, there was another one, and I get appointed as the secretary of the Constitution in the year 2001. And let me tell you, we went around this country. There is not a single county headquarters as we know it today that I did not go to. We went everywhere collecting people's views on all aspects. Today, when you read about constitution making, it is recognized in the world that there is no constitutional process in the history of the world that is as well documented as the Constitution of Kenya, the one that was made at the Bomas of Kenya. If you go to the National Archives, you'll find our documentation with the views of the people from all the constituencies in Kenya. We are present in every village in this country. That is what was our search for Kenya. Are the ones who said that we need war in order to have a constitution. You can see them. I don't want to name them because some of you worship them. So we went into an election in the year 2007 with some of them campaigning so very heavily. I was there. Then we nearly went to war as they wanted. We nearly went to war as they wanted. And I remember I was one of the first individuals to call for the African Union to intervene. If you read some of their autobiographies, you'll find our names there. With my friend Paul Wangai. We asked the then president of Ghana, John Kufuor, to come. Who was the then chair of the African Union. He did not succeed. He then requested Kofi Annan to come. And ultimately, somebody talked about the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. It was a child of that. And ultimately, in the month of August, the year 2010, we had a new constitution which had been watered down. We did not recommend that we should have 47 counties. We thought there would be too many. We suggested that there should be between 14 and 18, and none should be ethnically pure. We did not want ethnically pure counties, because we knew it would give birth to clanism. And if you are in Meru and other parts of the world, you will agree with me. That is what is happening with our revolution today. But be that as it may, Waswahili wanasema heri nusu shari kuliko shari kamili. We gave unto ourselves a new constitution in the year, I think it is on the 27th day of August, the year 2010. And that is the new constitution about which you now ask me to speak, and to speak specifically to article number 10 that talks about national values. What are these national values? What are they? Why do we want national values? Why does the human spirit want something as values? Kwa Swahili tunasema miko na maadili. My good friend Mugambi, when he was speaking to you, said that those values must be individual values. Swahili wanasema aje muda unena mungwana ni kitendo. In other words, as an individual, what do you believe in when you are alone? When you go to the toilet, how do you behave when you are alone? Do you flush the toilet to leave it clean, or you say somebody will be cleaning it when you are alone? When you go for lunch and it's a buffet, do you build a mini mountain on your plate, or you think there are others who are going to come? Those are personal values. There is a book by Robert Popovich called Mother Always Said, when you are dressing and you are going into town, what does your underwear look like? Your undergarments, because you may faint in public and we may need to undress you. Are you comfortable in that state of undress? Those are personal values. That is why we say cleanliness is next to godliness. And you go to any religion, to the Muslims, Ramadan Kareem, the Prophet says that before you worship, you must do something called wudu. You've got to clean yourself. Personal hygiene, those are not personal values. Then there are family values. In your family, how do you behave? There is a book somebody has just gifted me. I haven't read it. It says, if you want to change the world, make your bed. Can't change the world if you cannot make your bed. In your family, what do you do? Do you care about your siblings? Do you care about your relatives, your father, mother, and everybody else? Because unavyo mkanga dagaa ndivyo utakavyo mkanga papa. You cannot claim you'll do big things if you cannot do the small ones. So family values, so that if you say the Mbijiwe family, what are they known about them? The Mutembei family, what are they known about? Their families, ukiwataja hivi wanasema warogi hao wanakuzungushia ndonga hao. And their families, if you mention, yes, they stand for values. In other words, over the years, the family has built values, and they are known for it. There are people in this country, if you mention them, mwizi. Then there are societal values. You live in a society. Do you respect societal values? If you are a Mkamba, whether you are Kenyan or African or a human being, there are certain basic things that a good Mkamba should do. Mkamba mzuri lazima azungumze Kikamba hivi. Hiyo ndio Ukamba wako. That's why we say mwacha mila ni mtumwa. Mkamba mzuri lazima awe na jina la Kikamba. Mdigo mzuri lazima awe na jina la Kidigo. Meru mzuri lazima awe na jina la Kimeru. And you respect the institutions which make sense, not every other institution. If you go to the Meru, the Njuri Nshake makes sense in certain areas. You are enjoined to respect them. And if you want to change them, you reform them in an orderly manner. Those are Meru values. And then you now find yourself in Kenya. Then you must have Kenyan values. Mkenya ni nani? That is what brings me to Article 10. Mkenya ni nani? We have said that we believe in patriotism. Are we patriotic? We say we believe in equality or equity. Do we? We say we believe in good governance. Do we? Do we say we respect our culture? Do we? Swali mama, Mkenya ni nani? Or we are still looking for ourselves? We are still looking for that Kenyan. You know, in 1962, the country known as Tanganyika was being granted independence. And the leader, the Prime Minister of Tanganyika at that time, Chief Minister Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, and I had the fortune of serving as an intern when he was alive with him, said, and it's in history, he came to President Jomo Kenyatta and Apollo Milton Obote and Kabaka Mutesa and said, I want to delay Tanzanian independence, that we may become independent as one country. It's because we worship at the altar of tribal demigods. I want you to read a book by Koigi Wawamwere, Towards Genocide in Kenya, the Curse of Negative Ethnicity. And this is what Koigi says, among other things, that the problem in Kenya is that we have allowed certain ethnic warlords of a low voltage gun, because they don't have guns, to hypnotize us like the python hypnotizes its prey. And when they hypnotize us, Kenya means nothing. Tribe means everything. That is why we can't have national values. National values is not what is written in the Constitution. Inatoka hapa. And permit me, all of you who are here, or most of you, are either Christians or Muslims. Those of you who are Christians, on the day that you are baptized, do you remember that day when you said you reject the devil with all his works? Did you not say that? Did you? Did you? Did you not recite the 10 commandments from the first to the last? Does it not tell you not to steal? Don't you steal? Are we not one of the most corrupt countries in Africa, with 80% Christians? So that today in Kenya, Christians treat the 10 commandments as 10 suggestions from God. Because our values must stem. Spirituality is what anchors our values. Muslims, if you read the life of the Prophet Muhammad, and I'm a keen reader of the Quran and the Hadiths and the interpretations, the very first thing that the Prophet Muhammad is told when he meets the angel Jibril is read, Ikra. Ikra. If you ever did not know the meaning of the word Ikra, it means read. And you look at everything that was being told to the Muslim there. Sasa, do the Muslims do the right thing on a daily basis? Lash. Ndio maana Waswahili wanasema Uislamu si buibui na kanzu. Uislamu ni vitendo. So when we repeat these things, it's because human behavior has demonstrated that things must be repeated from time to time. That's why we say, show me your friends and I know who you are. Who do you mix with? First of all, let us ask ourselves whether they are Kenyans, Mkenya. Forget about citizenship, tuna kipande kimoja hivi. Tuna kipande cha Kenya. When you want to travel una passport ya Kenya, sawa tu. Ukitoka nje unajiita Mkenya, sawa tu. Lakini Mkenya ni nani? When you travel, and I've traveled in different parts of the world, and this is what surprises me. Na utanikubali nizungumze Kiswahili. Nyote mnaelewa Kiswahili. Sasa I travel outside Kenya. Sehemu mbali tu napata wa Kenya wamejiandaa wa Kikuyu. Na wako Amerika. There's nothing wrong being wa Kikuyu wamejiandaa. Wa Kikuyu kikundu cha. Wa Kisii. Wajaluo. Wa Tanzania wamenialika. Hakuna kitu cha Msukuma, ni wa Tanzania. In other words, wametambua kitu ambacho kinawaunganisha. It is within Tanzania. I do not mind being invited by Kenyans, and within Kenya they celebrate their Kisii-ness and their Kamba-ness and their Meru-ness. It tells you bado hatujampata Mkenya. This same Mwalimu Nyerere, the only African leader ever to have built a nation out of little nations, Tanzania, anasema hivi: siri ya maendeleo ni watu, ardhi, siasa safi, vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Hiyo ndio siri ya maendeleo. And in 1995, when he is invited by his party to talk about the leader that they need, anasema kiongozi tunayemtaka tusimchague kwa sababu ya dini yake au kabila lake. And he is annoyed and said, katika karne ya 21 mnapanda basi la makabila. Mnazungumza makabila. Mnazungumza dini, imani yako ni kati yako na Mungu wako. You can't talk of patriotism, being a Kenyan patriot, if you have not exorcised the ghost of ethnicity. Samora Moises Machel of Mozambique says, for the modern African nation to survive and thrive, the tribe must die. It must die so that it is only celebrated for cultural purposes, not as a basis for organizing the new nation. As such, I feel pain. Mulembe nation. Mukamba kivindio. Deluo jokanyana. Sisi Omogusi. Sisi wa Mijikenda. Sisi wa Somali. tunabaguana kwa ukabila. I have a young boy. He's one of my mentees. He's a doctor as I speak, pursuing his specialization at Maseno University. He comes from Migori County. He was the head of medical services in Bondo under Siaya County. The political leaders in Siaya County said that he should go because he is a Luo but from Migori County. This is a doctor. And he left. Can you believe it? Sasa tunabaguana sio kwa Meru na Mjaluo, Wajaluo kwa Wajaluo. Daktari unambagua. You people, when you are coming here and you boarded a matatu, if you did you ask the tribe of the driver? Ulitaka kujua kama anatoka kabila lenu? Si unataka dereva mzuri tu. Universities today, and we have many of them. More university. When my good friend Professor Airo was running the university, well, they threw him out because he was not Kalenjin. The university went down. Airo is building Daystar University. They have apologized to Airo. Professor Teresia Kenga, I'm giving you real examples, was appointed the Vice Chancellor of Eldoret University. They demonstrated against her because she was not from that tribe. Professor Otieno at Masinde Muliro University, the same. How can you talk about patriotism and national values when that is the way you organize yourself? Patriotism is not about loving your leaders, it is about loving your nation. Viongozi wako vigeugeu hivi. Leo yuko pale, leo yuko ni kama mwanamke anayeoa na kuolewa akinuka mito. But your nation is alive and well at all times. You can love your nation, but not your leaders who are here today and not here tomorrow. They change kama kinyonga. So when we talk about patriotism, nasema unaipenda nchi yetu Kenya, nchi yangu ninayoipenda. Je, unapenda Kenya? Are you prepared to die for your country, Kenya? Are you prepared to do the right thing even when you are in the minority because you are looking at Kenya not today but tomorrow? If you look at the arrangement of this room, it is almost deliberate. Many of the people who are in front, excluding these people, are the old ones. Which suggests to me that holding all factors constant, they are nearer to heaven than the people at the back. Because factors are never constant. They have stories to tell you. Their joy is that you who are young, can they leave the country in your hands? Decolonizing the mind. And Ngugi says, among other things, that we must change and decolonize our minds. Ili uwe kiumbe kipya. It can be done. It must be done. And when you want to change your mind, you must be teachable. In Greek mythology, there is a man called Socrates. How many of you have heard Socrates? He never wrote any book. It is his student Plato who wrote books, and there is a beautiful book which is called The Last Conversations with Socrates, written by Plato. And in Greek mythology, the oracle of Apollo wanted to know who was the wisest person in Greece. And the oracle went about Greece, and he met great Greeks, Aristophanes, Sophocles, Diogenes, and all of them, and they thought they were great. When they went to Socrates, he was asked, "Do you think you are wise?" And he said, "The only thing that I know is that I know nothing." The oracle went back and said, "The wisest man in Greece is Socrates, because he's the only one who knows that you cannot know everything." Humility is one of the best ingredients of patriotism. Are you humble? You can say many things in different ways. I'm about to finish. And there is an example that I now love giving, particularly to Christians, of how you speak the truth. And I'll repeat it again. In the Bible, there are two interesting characters. One of them is John the Baptist, known in Islamic tradition as Yahya, Nabi Yahya. He is the one who baptized Nabi Isa, or Jesus Christ. And he was very unhappy with a king called Herodias. Do you know that story? The principle here, who I want to believe is steeped in a Meru ways of Njurin Sheke. To be an elder of Njurin Sheke seems it's not a joke. You just don't pick any riffraff from anywhere and say this is an elder. We must know who you are amongst the Somali. We must know who you are amongst the Oromo, the Gada system. We must know who you are. Any community, we must know who you are, whether man or woman. Today, who do we choose as our leaders? Unamchukua mtu mfisadi, anajulikana mfisadi, anajulikana fisadi, mwizi. Amekupa fedha ambazo ameiba, fedha hizo pia kaiba. Let me give you an example to just illustrate how this. There is a man in Tanzania called Edward Lowassa. How many of you have heard Edward Lowassa? He was actually about to be the president when he contested with John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. This is what happened very early on when he was a member of CCM. At a function, he came and donated money. Fedha nyingi tu. Mwalimu akauliza, fedha ametoa wapi? Kama kamekopa katalipaje? Na kama kaiba kutoka kwa nani? Akasema Lowassa hafai hata kuwa hata kiongozi wa kijiji. And Lowassa never ever after that time, despite his attempts and despite his popularity, watu wanasema lakini kauli ya mwalimu ilikuwa ni hafai. These old people are the ones who are going to guide you even as you change the world. Martin Shikuku was my very good friend. 2 days before he died, he called me. He was lying on his deathbed, or what turned out to his deathbed, at the private wing of Kenyatta Hospital. And when I went there, he told me, "Young man, we call you PLO. Are you him?" "Yes." I think he says, "Yes." I told him, "Say you called me." I told me, "I know you teach at the university and you practice law. At the university, do they teach wisdom? And do they teach experience?" I told him no. He told me, I'm experienced. And experience comes with age. During that period, I've made mistakes, and I've also done good things. He told me, remain courageous, but don't be reckless. Do you see the wisdom? He told me, remain courageous, but don't be reckless. I remember those words. So you young men, I urge the spirit of courage to descend upon you. But don't be reckless. Don't be suicidal. But yet be prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice if it is necessary to do so. And because you are young, the last book that I commend to you is Bantu Stephen Biko. I write what I think. Go out there into the world and change the world, but begin by changing yourself. Once you have changed yourself, change Kenya. And once you have changed Kenya, change Africa. And once you have changed Africa, humanity will change. And you'll be able to say, like that great South African Mangaliso Sobukwe once said, there is only one race in the world, the human race. And it only requires one thing, good men and women who have values. Kwa Kiswahili, watu ambao wana maadili, watu ambao wanatambua miko, taboos and maadili, na watu ambao wana haya. Kama una haya, huwezi kuwa mtu mzuri. Mnanielewa? Lazima uwe na haya. Kwa hivyo ndugu wazalendo, nawatakia mema. Nimezungumza mengi tu. Nimezungumza mengi kwa kuwa kuna vitu ambavyo vinastahili kuzungumziwa, na nina hakika kama Wakenya tuna jukumu la kulijenga Kenya, na hiki ni kitu ambacho kitafanyika kupitia kwa vizazi. Lako ni kutoa mchango wako. Ni kama mbio za kupokezana vijiti. Wenzetu hawa wamekimbia, sasa watawapa vijiti. Nanyi pia mpitishe kijiti hicho mpaka siku ya kiyama itafanyika, kwa kuwa atafutaye hachoki, akichoka keshapata. Na mtaka cha uvunguni sharti ainame. Na Waswahili pia wanasema msishabikie vitu ambavyo havifai, mnashabikia vitu ambavyo vinafaa. Waswahili wanasema hivi, viwi mwa vilamba vyombo, vyema mtavilaje? Kama vitu vibaya mnavishabikia, vitu vizuri si mtameza vyombo? Na la mwisho ni hili, Shambilecho wahenga, mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani analielewa semi hilo? Akipata nitampa shilingi 1000 kwa vijana. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Nani atalipambanua apate shilingi 1000 za Kenya, si za Sudan? Basi hebu eleza. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Mlilala handingwa. Maana kwa urahisi.
Okay, najaribu tu. Inamaanisha kama chakula kimeandaliwa, hautangoja kuambiwa ukule, utakula tu.
Basi umeipata. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, mwe macho haambiwi tule. Kwa hivyo chakula kimeandaliwa cha maadili, your values. Sasa mnataka muitwe kwa mbwembwe na vinderemo na vifinjo. Mlilala handingwa handingwa, Mwe macho haambiwi tule. Asante.
Let us appreciate our guests. Let us appreciate our speaker properly. Asante sana, Bwana Professor. Thank you so much.
Mwe macho haambiwi tule. Asante.